call our meeting to order, 5 o'clock. We're gonna move to our work session, policy review to discipline policy and administrative regulations. Not sure how everyone necessarily wants to proceed. I kind of thought we would, I guess, just start with the little, the K2 and see if anyone had anything. There's hardly any, at least from my reading, any changes between them other than maybe a few more, a few more chances, or actually a few less as you cruise up the chain there. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Just to give you kind of a scope, the policy itself drives the handbook, but the building principals bring us in kind of an updated handbook every month. It's kind of one of their going out the door tasks to go through the handbook, make suggested changes. I don't know that we've made a whole lot of changes over the last couple of years, so I don't know that we presented it, but that was kind of a traditional June meeting, maybe in July. Go from there. As a principal, I would make notes. I had my handbook, I'd make notes in it, just things that you find as you go through a year, things you wanted to do a little differently, maybe change. So I don't know, this is driven by this. Yeah, I don't know if you want to go too deeply at this yet.
I started with the, okay.
Yeah, me too.
Perfect.
Yep. So yeah, I started with the discipline, read through it. I made a few, just highlighted a few things. I guess I'll look at mine and then if anyone has things that I missed, so we can do it that way. So I'm working off the K2, JG-AR-1,
Okay.
page 215. Something I found interesting as you cruise through the disciplinary actions, it's supposed to be just a staff on the student for quite a while, before the principal gets involved at all. I thought that was pretty interesting. So I'm working on the behavior contract, almost the lessons. So it just reads prior to administrative intervention. All these things would have been done before the principal had to get involved. So I thought that was interesting.
Well, again, just from a process perspective, the grade school has another layer. So it'd be good to get Kim in and talk a little bit about kind of how they do things, because there's just a little different approach. But typically at the high school, you have misconducts, we have forms, right? It's got lots of information you have to fill out, and then there's referral. So misconduct is what the teacher's using to deal with discipline that they're managing, which is a lot of the lower level types of things. The principal gets a copy of that misconduct. I'd get one, take it, I'd put it in Johnny's file, and that would be the working file for the year. And then it goes into the SIS system. They're logged, so there's a record of it. And then, if it was a chronic behavior, then you get 3 misconducts for the same thing. Now we can go through the pro. But kind of from a administrative perspective, essentially you said to the staff, misconducts are yours. They're yours to manage and deal with. I'll get a copy of them, but you're taking care of the misconduct. So you're assigning the discipline that goes along with it. And then once it got to a serious place and you wrote a referral, now it's mine. Now it's mine to deal with. So that's kind of the separation.
Yeah. One other thing that I wasn't aware of, same page, toward the bottom, that just adds up. That if a kid gets suspended or something, they don't get to make that workup. I wasn't aware of that. That was pretty interesting, and that travels all the way through all grades. Anyway,
I would say that's relatively antiquated.
is it?
Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily common.
So that's something you could potentially dabble with if anyone was interested.
Again, I'd have to talk about with Kim about kind of how they're managing that. I know it feels like that's the way it always was when I was doing it, but the COVID era has kind of thrown things on its head just a little bit, so.
Well, that's the way it should be. I mean, in my personal
I'm not saying
opinion,
it should or shouldn't, I'm just saying I
if
don't know
you
that
can't
that's.
behave at school, you don't get to go home and do the work, like,
But at the elementary level, I mean, it's philosophical. If the work is valuable
Mhm.
and it's learning.
Right.
Then why wouldn't I want you to do it whether you got suspended or not? I'd want you to still do the work. You're not earning credits at the KA level. You don't have to amass a certain grade or get a certain percentage of work done. At the high school level, it takes on a little different flavor because then you are earning credits. You know, if you get an F in class, that means you have to do it. If it's a class that's required for graduation. So again, I think that'd be a great conversation to have Bo and Kim mix up because I'm not sure how that's being applied, especially at the grade school level. And it used to be also that, you know, if a student had an unexcused absence, they didn't get to make up their work. Yep. And so I'm very sure that that one is not being applied. And again, if the work's valuable and it's meaningful, then I still want you to do it.
Yeah, so that verbiage is on page 1515, the same book here, 2 paragraphs up. So truancy or, you know, unassigned or unexcused, they don't get to make up their work, so. Also, if, like I say, these are all our policies, so if there's anything in here that you guys wanna discuss or talk about changing the verbiage of, I think, like Bill said, we should probably definitely consult the principal who it affects. But that can all be done. The rest of the center of that is just what each of the type of violations are and how it should be handled. So anyway, I was interested in, let me find the right page here. It was the salt part of the employee. And I don't know how specific you get on that. It sounds like there's a fair amount of, say, teachers getting kicked in the shins or any of that. Well, the way I read this, I mean, it's immediate, should be a principal thing if we were to follow this 100% accurate. So that's why, anyway.
but I think there's a whole nother curveball to that. If there are IEPs involved and things like that, I think that's just circumvented because, you know, those kids are here and can only be gone, would you say, 10 days out of the year, no matter what.
And I didn't see any of that in this, you know, even in parentheses, you know, if they have an IEP, this may be altered. So
I think that would be a good thing maybe to put in here for understanding, for parents to understand that maybe, I don't know, or not. But, yeah, I don't know.
I have a question. In an IEP, is there any kind of, I don't really know what IEPs have in it, so do they have anything about if a child does assault a teacher or something, what the steps are for that particular child? Like, is each child different? Each IEP?
Every one of them is a different document. I mean, there's fundamental pieces that would carry through.
Mhm.
And then some students would have a behavior plan attached to their IEP. It may get specific to that degree, but I don't know that I've seen any that specifically mention like specific misbehavior.
Mhm.
Special ed law kind of drives that, not policy.
Mhm.
And so essentially, to make it simple, you really can't suspend a special education student for more than 10 days in any given school year. If you do hit that 10-day mark, you have to hold what's called a manifestation termination meeting. You call the team back in, you look at the IEP, you look at the behavior, and you make a determination of is this behavior in any way, shape, or form related to the disability? And if it is, then you have to make a plan for adjusting to that if your days of suspending are done.
Mhm.
If it isn't, then technically you can reset the clock, but it's quite an argument. There's a lot of detail that goes into that, and it's just one of those places where you don't want to make a mistake.
Mhm.
So I think typically, I see the same thing. There's a lot more, whereas 10 or 15 years ago, 20 years ago, like, never happened. Or it was extremely rare. And now we'll get one or two forms a week from staff members who've been kicked or bitten or punched or take your pick. Yeah, maybe all at once. And it's first graders, second graders, third graders. It's not older kids. So. Seismic shift. Right. Yeah, would be addressed in the IEP, hopefully. If it hadn't been, it could be added to the IEP. Yeah, it's interesting.
The last thing I had with the K2, is on the very back page, 1615. And it would be step one, appendix C. Just that if it ever does make it all the way to an action plan, that the board members, will receive a copy. I know I have never had a copy at any point, so if that is still practiced, then page, 1615, the very back page, all the way, flip it over. Step one, appendix, or whatever you want to call it. Letter C, the last sentence in it.
I know as a principal, I don't know that I ever set my action plans to the board. Not a bad idea, because action plans, typical action plan at the high school level would be, okay, so you've gotten in trouble for this 4 times this year. You got 4 fights. We're gonna put you on a very specific set of expectations. So you would draft it up, you know, this is what the student will not do. You know, if it happens again, then it's gonna be a 3-day suspension. If it happens the second time, it's gonna be a 5-day suspension. The third time, it's gonna be a 7-day suspension pending expulsion. And expulsion is where potentially the board could get involved in it. So I could see giving the board a heads up. I don't know, we may have done, Kim may have done one action plan this year for grade school. Maybe it's last. Not super typical. You have to go a ways to get there. Because this one system hopefully works before them. But I remember doing.
So, that's all I have for K2. If someone else would like to add point or a page or something, we can definitely go there.
Well, one of the things that I wanted to just go to was 12-15, number 2 towards the bottom. I think we kind of, 12, 15.
Oh, 12, I'm sorry.
Talks about hats.
Yeah,
We've gotten rid of that, correct? I mean, grade school
it
wears
depends on the teacher.
hats. So it needs to be, I feel like it's an either.
But
Do your
Bill
portrait or
said
don't.
that it's
Yeah.
kind of the same thing here at the high school, right? It's, some teachers allow it and some teachers don't.
So should we change the wording of that to teacher preference?
You want to put that on the
I
teacher.
don't know.
So the story around hats, we were no hats K-12 forever.
Mhm.
That's very supportive of that. I don't think we need to be in the building, but, and there's some other reasoning around it, but, 3 or 4 years ago, former administrator made an executive decision and decided they weren't going to enforce it. This year, only about halfway through the year, there was just a decision that they weren't gonna worry about it. Why, I couldn't explain it to you, the question. But first, in favor of it, but that's just fine.
And
I
that-
don't necessarily have a preference, I think I just wanted to be clear, like, is it or isn't it, kind of,
That's good.
And that
We're
carries
not gonna
through
do it
all of them.
all of it. Yeah.
That same
Yes.
line is at the same place.
The other thing, this is all like so individual student, what I hear a lot of is instead of starting on these and directing to a student the action towards the student who did it, the whole class or the whole group is, has things taken away or minimized or whatever. Instead of it being directed at the person or the student that it should be, I feel like there is a big wave of generalized, everyone in that class or everyone on that's on recess or everyone in that group, stays late, doesn't get the balls anymore, can't go play in the field. Like, it's one of those things where I feel like it's okay, it's one kid ruins it and it's ruined for everyone. Where I feel like that, in my opinion, should be scaled back a bit instead of it being so like one kid left a ball out, so all the balls went away. Come on. So just those types of things. I get it if you don't know who did it, but if you know specifically a student that did it, they should be having the one that has the action and not the entire group. That's just one of my pet peeves, but maybe I just don't know. So
And I didn't read anywhere where it
it doesn't
give the option. to
give that
do a
option
broad-
to do that.
Yep.
So that's, I guess that's something that I think maybe we should. Yep. Um. Well, how great are we about like enforcing violations of dress code? And not,
You still in the K2 or are you just doing more of a
just
broad?
more in broad, yeah, general.
That'd be
I know
the
it's on
same
all of
12.
them, but it's like 315 or 1215
Well, right?
Yeah.
Right there below the hat.
and 314. Yeah. So, I was just curious about that.
I would think if something really bad, they was, I know Bo said something for students.
And I feel a little more, and I'm not trying to marginalize anything, but I feel more like this is our time to make sure this is the way we want it. And
Yeah.
then Bill will
Yeah.
push it on the principals a little more, so.
Yeah, okay.
So if there's any, verbiage we want to change in this, then that's.
Dress code's tricky.
Yeah.
It's, a common refrain, and you could walk into any building,
Yeah,
get the same, because all 7 of us would have a different perspective on, okay, that's fine, or absolutely not.
right.
I remember having teachers that, when you have 3 teachers who would hold to every stitch of that, and some that would never say a word. Because, that one in particular is one, is tricky, very tricky.
Well, we also have students that push the line like during spirit weeks.
But
stuff
I
like
think
that.
from your perspective, looking at the definition of what is in there, and saying, yeah, we want that in there, we're not worried about that.
On 215. I thought it was interesting, the employee assigned school service as a staff action. I thought that was interesting. Is that something that we do? Is that we continue to do, or is that just
I would-
maybe something old that we've done previously?
I would expect that to be things like, it depends on the level, but,
Yeah,
you made a mess in the back of the classroom, so you're gonna stay after and,
Clean it up.
that's the
Gotcha.
domain.
okay,
It wouldn't be like you're gonna go mop the hallway.
Yeah.
and anything like that. I remember giving administrative school service, let's say you have 2 hours of school service, so you have to go find a custodian after school. And probably find you some tasks like sweeping the hallway, things like that. If you. K2, I don't know what that. Maybe one that probably doesn't belong there unless it's like in your classroom.
Right. Yeah, the administrative can be even on the weekends, it says. After hours or on weekends. I knew I'd read that somewhere. At least that's the way it's written. See a whole bunch of tabs on your stuff.
Yep. Well, Sarah, are you still going?
Nope.
I guess the first place to start is, why do we not just combine these and make one for each campus? Because there's like two very small differences between the two of them. And that's it. The rest is all the same.
Yeah, they're saying, once it gets to referrals, where the administrator is involved, it's identical all the way through.
Right.
Yep.
So I don't see a different, I mean, I don't see a real reason to have two for that school.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. I know that this policy is about 30 years old in its basic form.
I mean,
It's been changed, but I remember when they did this as a government. Why they chose to break it up K2, 3, I have no idea. I wasn't involved.
That's not even breaking up middle school from grade school.
Yeah, K5, and then
I can
6,
see
8,
that.
that makes more sense.
Yeah.
I don't know what the K, and one of the things may have been when this was originally put in place was when we started the consolidation process. And so we had the high school, and then the middle school was 6, or the Monroe school was 6, 8. Alpine was 3, 4, 5, or 4, 5. Bell Fountain was K1, 2, so that may have been the variation in that because they were started out with 4 different buildings. With 4 different grade levels in each. And then slowly consolidated them down to 2. So maybe that's why it did that. That's about the same.
Back to Sarah's point, though, I think she's right. I don't see why we can't not make it one policy throughout the whole building.
I just think it's less confusing that way, especially if I've got a second grader and an 8th grader, and I think I've got to,
Do we really on parents that look, okay, well,
peruse these,
you
but
gotta
there's
read
pretty
through,
much
they
the
choose
same.
one, they go, oh, I didn't read the right one. I gotta do the next one. It's all the same stuff.
And it's just a few more chances for the littles. Essentially, you're doing horseplay, you get a couple more warnings, is the way I read it.
All right.
I'm just gonna look at.
That can also go back into the misconduct area, or, the latitude that you're given during misconduct too.
Well, it's interesting because you'll find I haven't looked at this one policy since I was principal probably. But then I was very interested in what the Junction's high school policy look like, what is Harrisburg's, so you get in this conversation. So it'd be interesting to maybe look at some other like K5.
Yeah.
You find a lot of K5 buildings, middle school buildings, and what are they doing differently? There's a wider variety than you would think in discipline policies. It's not just one way to do it. There's a lot of different philosophies out there on it.
If we were gonna split it, I would think we'd wanna split it grade school, middle school. If we're gonna make two
Yeah.
policies.
I agree.
K5
K5 makes sense.
Are those easy to get?
makes probably find
Or
out
on
a
the
lot.
website.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think about that, because ours is online. Okay.
The grade school handbook does have both in it, so.
Right.
In theory, the parent could go, okay, I have a K2, this is gonna be the protocol, but. Either way.
Well, and so, I mean, to what we've kind of already discussed about, I've highlighted a bunch of spots where it talks about, what we're gonna do for discipline, and it can be detention, suspension, expulsion. But if you have a child with an IEP, that's not in the cards, and so as a parent, if I don't know that, I'm wondering, well, why does Jimmy get away with that behavior when it says right here that, if he strikes a student, or he's gone, but that's not the case. So how do you, what do you do with that?
You can't talk about IEPs with other people.
No,
Not the individual parts of it, but we could do a broad statement at the beginning of that matrix, I think. Yeah, but the problem is it's just gonna cause a little. I would imagine they could bring some interest.
Well, I'm sure it causes probably issue we don't necessarily hear about now. I mean, I hear about parents like that they pulled their kid out because another student was constantly roughhousing with her. And in my, back of my mind, I'm thinking that student probably has an IEP, and that's why this wasn't followed, you know? But I don't know how you can put that out to the general public without causing undue hardship for those families.
Let me research that a little bit. Let me see if I can find some other policies that maybe mention that. I don't know, because you are getting into a funny little corner.
Yeah.
Right,
Privacy.
That way you can protect both kids, you know, the IEP one and the one that doesn't have one. Yeah. But we do that.
How did everyone feel about the cover letter, or essentially I call it the cover letter, you know, what our reason is? Was there anything in there you didn't like representing us, or?
well, I highlighted that same section about students may be expelled for any of the following circumstances, just so that we can talk about what to do in that situation. And then the use of out-of-school suspension.
Yep.
And this is for fifth grade or below, so it doesn't really follow
Right.
either of these. But are we, I guess my question is, are we doing that? Like, are we following 1, 2, and 3? Like, do we actually follow through with that?
I think because if we are, is it working? If it's not working, do we need to do some sort of changes to it to help make it better? Is that?
Well, yeah, I mean, as an administrator, do you just look at this and say, well, half of this doesn't even pertain to us anymore because we don't do it, and so it's just kind of collects dust? I don't know.
Is it functioning? I guess, you know, we really need to sit and have
Discussion with both.
Sam and Bo in this discussion and say,
We also got to
are
figure
we
out.
following it or is it obsolete?
If we have the IEP, I mean, it's, you gotta know what student it is too. Maybe they are following this with regular students, they're fine. It could be the other students that are following.
Did you
Like,
have
do you
any
have
other
another
comments
task?
on this?
No, same thing. I had highlighted some of those sections. Cats was one, just so that I knew it's clear cut if the principals wanted to just fall on the, well, this is the policy and this is the policy, that's it. You know, they could do that if they wanted.
But I think if it's a policy, it can't be a pick or choose.
Right.
You know, like, one teacher can't be like, yeah, I don't care, and then the next teacher's like, no hats. Like, that doesn't work.
And I thought I'd have a little more of that discussion once we start reviewing that. If we make it there.
I don't know if we'll make it there.
Yeah.
Under misconduct, I'm unsure of what failure to use title of respect means. Sounds very old school. Like,
It is.
Mr. Croson, is that what we're talking about there?
Yeah, instead of using their first name or.
So, I mean, is that, should that, something like that be reworded, or, because I even had to think about it for a few minutes.
Be calling it, running into that.
Like, I don't know why it's, I don't know why it needs to be in misconduct, but maybe.
Well, if a certain kid just always said, teacher, hey, you, hey, you, hey, you, this would be something they could say, hey, you need to,
I'll be respectful.
you know.
Yeah, I guess I can see that.
Same with a lot of it, every teacher's gonna have a different threshold.
One thing I noticed throughout the consequences is when we get down to like third and sometimes fourth infraction, there is nothing listed anymore about parent contact.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's just gone.
Well, every misconduct should go home, every referral should go home. There's a space on both to describe the behavior, and there's a space on both to describe the consequence for that. That's what should go home.
I was thinking the same thing, but it definitely stopped saying parents.
In all of them. Yeah, it's only like the first,
First three.
sometimes the second or third.
Just first three.
Yeah,
And again, I think that's probably different at the two levels. They are getting contacted with the other people. Because if a misconduct was written, a copy
Going
was home. Referral was written, a copy goes home.
I think
So,
it should be added all the way through, especially for some of these younger teachers. I know from personal experience that some of the younger teachers go by this and misconstrue things.
so what is how would you define contact then?
Well, I mean, it says here, parent contact, but then on the fourth infraction,
So
it's
you
gone,
getting a misconduct in the mail, I would call them.
which is fine, except how much do we trust our mail system these days?
well, and I would hope that after like the third time, that the parent contact is like, you're calling them, or you're having the parent come in, there's a meeting at that point, you know? And maybe that's informed by the mail, but like you said, how many times the mail? Because if it was my child and it's their third time, I'm in that school, and we're gonna talk with her, the principal, and be like, what is going on?
Well, I know Lucas got one, and they sent one to me and his dad. His dad got it, I never did. But the school said, no, we sent out both. Well, I'm sure they probably did, but mine went who knows where. I just don't know if that's, I don't know if that's the best.
Can we email those?
There might be some sort of privacy thing to that.
Yeah.
Or mail it, I guess, but follow up if we're now on the second or third infraction and
That's
I haven't
fine.
heard anything from a parent.
Mhm.
Are
I-
they supposed to be
if-
signed and brought back?
No,
No, those ones aren't. It's, you have to get pretty bad.
referral, referral, you gotta sign it, send it back.
But like you're saying, Sarah, that it wouldn't be hard to add the verbiage.
No, just
contact.
parent
yeah.
contact.
Mhm.
To the other 3 or 4, whatever it is. It should be there.
But once you get to a, behavior contract, then the parent's part of that, according to the definition. of
Right.
Behavior contract, so,
Yeah, that's why it's not in the deal.
but once again, other than someone has to sit there and type it in here, then we have a revision. It's not a big deal.
And hopefully it's clear to
Add those.
staff, you know, exactly what this should be happening, so that way there's no question for them. You know, like, there's new teachers.
Right. On page 6, the driving, riding, or sitting in the car during school hours and leaving campus without permission. I don't know how many K through 8 are driving, riding, or sitting in their cars, but I don't know that necessarily, I mean, we could probably leave the leaving campus without permission, but I don't know that top line,
But it could be, say, an aunt or someone came and they went out and said, you know. I agree with the driving ones, so they're not driving. We hope.
They're big trouble.
and then the truancy. We can't do anything about that anymore, right?
Can't do much right now, there is a bill,
They're talking, they're talking, thinking about it.
this is another funny one, they've taken all the teeth out of it. It used to have a potential fine. with it, but very clumsy process. And required you to work with the court system in some way, shape, or form. It was just not a real effective, I mean, it might have been a deterrent for some, at some level.
All these things we could do, we can't do, because these are all us things. Right, in theory.
Well, maybe. But if truancy is the issue, I don't know what good suspension does.
Right.
Like, that doesn't seem to compute.
No.
No, and that's an interesting one too, because you have in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension. Out-of-school suspension is certainly an easier one for the school staff to manage. But then you are kind of fighting that fight of, Riley doesn't want to be here anyway. So we're suspending him for 3 days. Doesn't bother Riley.
Mhm.
And really all it did, for me, the question was, are we better off with that student not here? Is that better for the other 130 kids? if Riley's not here? So that's where it felt like it was okay. I mean, some are automatic. You get in a fight, you have to go for 3 days. Easy, quick. But,
Suspending for not coming
yeah,
does seem a little counterproductive.
I wonder if that has anything maybe also to do with, them not getting the work, like you were saying. They're not able to get the work. If you're truant, maybe you can, but if you're suspended, you can't. So I don't know if that makes a difference as far as like non-suspension
I think originally, so what's kind of striking me as we look at this, I mean, you're looking at a policy that is 30 years old.
is.
So it's based in 1995, different world, different outlook. And the administrators who put this in were not young either, so they came at an even older perspective. So yeah, you read through some of it, you go, this just isn't the way the world is working right now. So it's interesting.
Yeah, so truancy, but is also unexcused absences have the same effect. So if they want,
That's the same thing.
Yeah.
Towards you.
exactly, so they still can't get their homework.
Same.
So,
But again, if you're a sixth
That was
grader,
the intent.
not getting to do your math homework.
Yep.
I mean, if here's to the point of they're not able to get them up and get them to school, you're probably not able to get them to do their homework. You know, so it's high school, it can carry some weight, but they've even watered that down. I remember one school locally had high school had an hour requirement for earning a credit. So typical credits, I think, were around 90 hours. So if you took a government class from beginning to end, it would be about 90 hours in length. I think their rule or their policy was if you weren't here for 60 hours of the 90, you couldn't earn credit. Didn't matter if you had an A+, couldn't earn credit if you weren't physically present for 60 hours. And I remember looking at it and saying, I was kind of envious of the policy. You know, we never implemented it, but I'm sure that it's long gone. Right, long gone.
To me, it sounds like we maybe need to look at some other districts' policies, and then probably have another meeting that included Bill or Bo.
Well, this is all stuff that probably best fitting in the summer.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
it's a transition piece. You don't rewrite the rules in May. You don't. And so I think we've got time.
If the page 10, possession, distribution, and other use of controlled substances, and we've got tobacco in there. But we probably need to be adding some other things in there as well now, because.
That's the next one down, right?
Yep.
Anything other than tobacco.
Well, but is tobacco really the problem now, or is it nicotine?
Right.
Right, like
You're right.
vaping,
Yeah.
And-
Could be nicotine.
marijuana is no longer a controlled substance. So
It is for kids,
it is for kids,
just like alcohol.
Yeah, under 18.
okay,
Tobacco, that's unless you're. Oh, tobacco would be too.
right, but vaping isn't tobacco. Vaping is nicotine.
And it's not, it's, I guess, no.
I mean, it is,
For
you're not
kids.
supposed to have it under the age of 18, but
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, if we're gonna rewrite it, we might as well bring it up to
Yeah,
2025.
you should have a record.
Mhm.
And the reason those two were separated is because at one point in time, we had to offer a cessation process during that.
I saw that in there,
And
like you
so
can get rid of your suspension.
It was
if you do a
mandated that
sensation.
we develop a cessation course, so if you got caught with tobacco, you were given the opportunity to complete the course and then have some of your suspension time. That's, I think that's 100%.
Sweet.
Yeah, even the notify police option would be like, literally, I think on the other side of the phone, you would get, yeah, we're not coming for that.
Right. But at what point would they come?
Vaping. But now, that's what that would be, tobacco, you know, it says, number one, notify police.
Right.
Like, I'm like, a vape pen? We're not coming for that. Sorry.
The notify police part,
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see what Burlington said about, I don't know, if they're, what they do.
Right.
the destructive, page 12. So I highlighted displays of affection. Um,
I go back there with dress code.
correct. I've got dressing grooming highlighted here as well. And I added a note about, we talk about, halter tops or showing your bare midriff. But more times than I'd like to see, I go down there and see butt cheeks out the bottom of shorts and skirts,
K2 kids?
just at the grade school,
Oh,
period.
I thought we were just on K2.
Well, they're both the same, so I wrote all my notes on one.
Yeah, I did the same thing, and then if it was a special note,
Yeah,
that section.
right. But if we jump into the dressing grooming at some point, I don't think it would be a bad idea to say that it has to be, 5 hands below, or there's ways to do it so that if somebody was a constant coming in, administration would at least have something to say, hey, we
Fingertip line.
talked to you about
Yes.
this. Huh?
It's fingertip.
Fingertip length? What if I've got little midget hands? Figured.
You haven't known to say that.
Well, you know what I mean, like, computers probably need to be added, and like recess equipment maybe for the destruction and damage of school property. Cause computers were probably not a thing when this was really. Certainly not every
Terry
student
at that point.
Yeah, right.
I seen it somewhere.
What was there? Playground equipment.
Yeah, like recess equipment or,
Why can't we just say any school property? Why does that have to be spelled out?
I don't know, it is, so that's why I
I know.
added those couple things.
I think Tim would attest to the Chromebooks.
Yeah.
The constant fight, just not, I mean, part of it's just wear and tear. I get it. But what is mean, we're running into some repair stuff.
And maybe it's in here, I just didn't see it yet, but like, if you have a student that does destroy a Chromebook or something like that, what is there, do they penalize for it? I remember when I was in school, if we had a bill in a year, if the bill was zero, you got your diploma. If it wasn't, you got a bill. It was very discouraging for those kids to show their parents, they want to see their diploma, well, here's $300 for school district.
I remember checking out books and going through
Yeah,
what kind of condition is it in,
yeah. Well,
making notes.
yeah, it says any student, and then there's a bunch of verbiage, if you hurt it or whatever, if you broke it, will be held responsible for the complete cost of repair. So, yeah. So it is in the policy that way.
Well, don't we sign something too as parents that, like, if my child,
It's in the handbook, it's on the back page.
okay, I was like, I know that I signed something, so I make sure that I don't know. You'll be working on that extra.
I'm not sure specifically,
It
Probably just
actually
call that out.
says
but that's not a bad idea.
If they
to
were,
add cost of equipment, because, I mean, just Weston was saying, somebody jumped up and smacked one of the projectors in the science room and broke it.
it came clear down, didn't it, Tim? Just about.
I think just about, it didn't break it completely, it just pulled it out of the wall.
And hall passes, is that something that's still in use? That was another thing I highlighted.
I think it is in this building, at least.
don't know about doing that.
It's not, I would say it's not ineffective, it's written.
Okay.
They might have like a physical hall pass hanging by the door, where you grab it and go out, but nobody's writing hall passes anymore. I'm pretty confident.
Is there even a hall monitor anymore?
Non-educational items. Don't see too many kids walking around with boom boxes.
That would,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's called a cell
cell phone.
I know, I know.
Cell phone
Um,
Take care of that.
So that could probably use a little work. And then I highlighted too, what you were talking about making up work and not making up work. Tobacco, alcohol beverages, I made a note there that probably need to work on that a little bit.
Oh, here you go, right below the truancy, vandalization. Has computers in it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there it is. Then you'd have to go back and find it in the matrix of where that was used
Right.
to see what the discipline for it
It
is.
says willful destruction.
It's like a choose your own adventure.
I love it.
Willful destruction, we have to prove that they actually did it on purpose.
Too much.
Old glass washing up and smacked it.
Well,
That's a pretty.
I know.
Local.
how did you say destruction?
Right here in the destruction of school property says each infraction includes restitution. So. AKA pay us back.
But how can you enforce that? I'm not saying it's a bad policy, like if you break something, you should replace it, but how do you hold them accountable for that? Because a parent will just say, I can't afford it. And then what?
Parents live until they graduate high school and they don't get the diploma.
Last time I checked, we could not afford diplomas.
No.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the stealing and vandalizing, each section has restitution.
Yeah, it does, I saw that a lot in there.
But if we don't have any way to do it. Then
It's not bad. It's a try.
No, not at all, I just didn't know if there was anything else we could do to kind of hold it accountable.
I think at one point, wasn't there talk, not that we were gonna do it, but talk of back, lunch bills going to a collection agency?
There's talk of it.
Theory, you could do such a
You
thing.
could go to that place.
I mean, if it was
You
a
can't
bunch.
even if they don't pay, it just goes on the credit as, you know, as a problem. Not a good way to do that.
I don't know if I'm saying the right words, is there a way to do like a community service work off of it with the student, like after school? They have to help with something and maybe that will then help them be more respectful of equipment because now it's seen time out of there. I don't know. I don't know if anyone can enforce or not, but if parents are like, no,
Exactly, school service, that the principal has the option to do.
You get into an interesting situation there too, because even at the high school, but certainly at the middle school level, you know, if you said, you have Sarah stay an hour every day after school to work off, you know, the Chromebook she wrote, or whatever the situation is, I have to figure out how to get Sarah home,
yeah.
because now she rides the bus, and parents can't come pick her up. So there were times even at the high school level, when you just wouldn't do anything after school, because
Yeah,
they rode the bus and I'm not gonna go.
Or can't take the lunch away.
You can do lunch detention, you can't not allow lunch.
Right.
But I know the grade school is doing some lunchtime detention stuff, they bring their lunch to the detention room.
Yet, in the section for vandalizing and stealing, that administrative school service is one of the punishments. Someone's thought of all. Just how do you do it?
Right. Well, that pertains to nowadays.
So I think what we're tasked with the most is updating this stuff to the modern world.
That's all I had in the littles. I didn't make very many notes on the high school because it was the same. Oh, it was the thing about, page 5, when it gives very specific times where you're not allowed to drive unsafely.
Yep, I thought that was funny.
Oh.
You could do donuts in the parking lot at 8:05, don't do them at 8 o'clock.
Right. Correct. I was like, wait, what? I did not
Oh,
get.
sorry, 7:05. 7:05 is good.
8 o'clock back.
I don't know that we need to be that specific. It should be all the time.
I think all the time on school grounds.
You're not ever allowed to do donuts in the parking lot.
Yeah, I did pick up.
No fun,
I've seen the.
I got a chuckle.
And I imagine part of the reasoning is that the whole center, that there's no driving. Right, because you're not allowed to be in your car. But I don't know why we cap it at 7 o'clock at night. Why, it's interesting. Right? I don't know. Yep.
Are we just a closed campus for driving?
I know.
Closed campus for walking?
Closed campus period.
Maybe was there a half day or something last week?
Yeah.
Okay, that's why I saw kids going to bed.
We had conference days on Thursday and Friday at the grade school, and then high school was half day on Friday.
Okay, that's why I saw them. Okay, never mind.
And then there's even specific places, at least in this building, where you're not supposed to be at all. Out on the track or past the shop. During hours.
Has Monroe always been closed campus?
It was closed when they built the gym in 1990, because prior to that, there was no food service at the high school. So the only way to, if you didn't bring lunch, you had to go down to the
Great school.
Craig's Market. Which is where it was. So yeah, that changed that.
I mean, it's not like there's a lot of places to go. Benny's and Dairy Mart. You had closed campus, right? It was closed when I went too.
Yep.
Okay. Do you have anything else in there?
No, this is covered.
I'll work on finding some other examples. I'm curious.
Who would be like super modern? Who else would be super modern? Right, I do.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because we're a small district, but I think a lot of small districts are probably like us, that we're just kind of behind. Because it's not at the forefront all the time. Bigger districts get more pressures.
And what corrals, they're 2 weeks ago.
A lot of stuff to work on.
All that stuff.
Or maybe even Philomath, because they're growing like crazy.
Yeah.
That might be a good one.
Does anyone want to dabble in the handbook in our 5 minutes? Okay, reschedule.
Took me like an hour to get to all this stuff.
Do we want to, like, each do a different one and bring what we found? Or do we want to all do the same
Oh, we
one?
want to split?
Yeah, like maybe one person do different districts and then we can bring.
Oh, I see what you're talking about.
Yeah. Or do we want to all focus on the same ones? How do we, it's.
That's a good idea.
I'm gonna be ornery and pass off to the guys getting paid to do it.
I can try to find exemplars in other places.
I think it's bad for us to do our own one too. Take a look. Yeah, you get online, look up.
Find something interesting.
Find the time.
Ground one.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Add more work to us. Good at that.
Fun.
That's at least easy. You can do it. One of these, just when you have a few minutes to get on websites.
Click on the office here.
So just for the course of this, so I understand, we're gonna look at a few other districts And then will we get back together and reconvene on it, or will we get back together after we've reviewed those with admin, like summertime? Like, what would be the best way to do all this?
I mean, it's entirely up to us if we wanna just hopscotch to the next type of policy. I know Chris would like to review some of the financial policy stuff here. And then let Bill collect and then say we wait until summer to do this again. It's up to you guys, it doesn't
I
matter.
just didn't know if we should have like our thought process written down of, we're gonna replace this section with this verbiage that we found in Harrisburg. Like, if we should do that planning and then bring the admin team in and discuss it, or if we're doing that all at once. That was,
Like, what's the process, which one?
right, which would get us further in the shortest amount of time, I guess.
Doing our homework or, study. Would be good, and then maybe bringing the admin team back in June. And talking through some of the different pieces, because I think there's application questions that
Mhm.
would be interesting to answer.
Because maybe then we could have something that's like, as a board, we really like this. How would that pertain to
Would it work?
campuses?
How
Would
would
it
it
work? And then tweak it from there.
So then us meet again after we've done homework with some other districts. Again, before we meet with them. Okay,
Yeah, I think so.
that works for me.
Okay.
Do we want to move that now?
When is that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you wanna do another work session next month? 5 o'clock?
Well, do we need to jump over to those at all first, or what?
Well, those are just gonna be from what we decide on dates.
Well, that's only one part of those,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
in the grand scheme.
But I think it'd be great to have Bo and Kim come in with those,
Yeah.
Okay,
maybe, walk through that process as they're making changes.
Yeah, what do they wanna change?
okay.
I'd like to hear about that.
Before we start doing ours, okay.
Before you, read through it for sure, but I think that'd be really interesting.
So I guess be prepared for a Bo and Kim meeting with that already reviewed and comments made, and then we can just work like that, a work process.
Okay.
And then for this one, we'll do more homework on our own before we discuss it with them.
So you're looking at the May meeting, do a handbook review with Bill, yep.
No, not until probably June, till summertime. But we could just. We should have enough time. Do you think we'd have enough time, Bill, if you looked at if you found a couple policies you thought would be decent we could do that at the next meeting. And then we would be prepared then for June to go through both with them.
Maybe look at some other things.
Yeah,
So before our May meeting, we'll do a 5 o'clock like this.
And at that 5 o'clock, we'll have gone through our other districts that we found, and we'll also have some of the other handbook too, so we'll do the heck of it. Okay.
Depending on which of you are here.
Oh, true, yeah.
oh, yeah, that's right. Is it the 12th?
Me too.
No, it's the third Monday in June. Oh,
I'm
I'm
sorry
sorry,
about May,
you're in May.
but that's only the second.
Ready?
Twelve would be the second.
The 12th would be the second.
Yep.
Is that right? Yep. Okay.
Well,
What? 13th budget.
I'm just gonna bring my pillow and sleep bag again.
So we're doing the 12th at 5 and then the budget on the next day? Is that
Yeah.
what we're doing?
Yeah.
Okay.
oh, you got very wing me. Oh, it's cool. This is an executive, so it's easy to just transition. I like it.
While it's here, what time does that meeting start? Thank you.
only do the one day, and if we need another day, then we schedule it at that, right?
No, it's already scheduled.
Both days. So just keep it on the calendar. It would be fine.
It'll be fine.
Maybe fun.
Okay, we'll return to regular meeting agenda. Minutes. See anything with our minutes?
I'll motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Or both? Second. Those in favor? Do we have any additions to our consent agenda?
Yes, 6 communications, if you could add, a letter from MTA, intent to bargain.
Bills and financial reports. Anyone have anything they wanna ask about or comment on? Okay.
The power is still rising like crazy.
I just have one little question, and it's probably because I just didn't know.
Baby.
Eight, I just didn't realize that we had a security monitor, what is that, like during games and stuff, or?
We have 3 security monitoring contracts. One is for the grade school. That's the high school. That's in the fee. Basically, they just monitor our systems, and if something rattles a window over the weekend, we get phone calls, and they dispatch if necessary. And then we have a different company that does all the fire alarm systems.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really just a relay service, right? If an alarm goes off, they go down the phone list and call each person. Alright. Oh yeah, you didn't do your thing, darn it. Okay. Coaching contracts, for spring at 25. Papers on that. Chad Smith, girls flag football. And then Mason Croson, assistant baseball. Flag football, how's that going? Have you had any reports?
Yeah, they had a game here on Saturday and another one Thursday. It's probably I don't know how long it lasts. Because of interest. But we didn't have softball, so I was viable. There was a group of girls that wanted to do it.
I saw a group of them out here painting the rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then get up.
I think the games here last week, I think they lasted about an hour. I think each game is about an hour long. It's actually pretty quick. It's 12 minutes, running clock all the way up to the last 2 minutes of the, first and second half. It just seemed like, one thing, it seemed like it was really laid back and everything. Reese had a great time doing it and everything.
Nice. That's on the calendar on the website, I assume, like their game schedule, in case anyone wanted to find it.
Only one more home thing on Thursday. That's the only other one. The rest of it's all away, I think.
Yeah, the one here Thursday will be at 7:15. I think they play like South. I think they play Willamette, I think South Eugene.
Oh, wow. Big school. And that's on the main football field.
Yep.
Wow. Then Mason, he's been doing all kinds of stuff for us. addition to have. How's baseball going? Revise the academic calendar.
What is a small change, we were a day over on the contract, so we changed January 5th from professional development day to just another non-contract day. So essentially, we had to pick a day in there somewhere, and that's one that traditionally, we've had staff come in just to give them kind of a slow start after the break. So if they want to come in that day, they can. But we had to find it.
Guess with that,
Motion to approve the consent agenda. I'll second.
those in favor? Communications, letter from MTA, intent to bargain. I would volunteer to be one of our bargaining members if someone would like to join me. Chris did it last time. I can do it again.
Well, I remember us having a conversation about the teams last year, didn't we?
I'm not sure. I think we kept you and I separate so the chair and the vice chair weren't
Is that
on
what
the
it was?
same, but I don't know if there's a reason for that per se.
Well, because really neither you nor Chris can do the other.
Mhm.
So,
You just have to document.
well, it's just easier.
Yeah, I have no problem. It's fun.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Let's do it.
When, they haven't set a time yet, right?
I think it's up to us now. Yep. So yeah, Christine, if you wanna inform them, we have a team and try and schedule. Really not that long, 2 months.
Yeah, we could work.
Later today. Yep.
Have we heard from Westbury?
There's no negotiation.
Not
Contract issue.
because we swapped,
Sweeter contract.
right, so that we could get, yeah, I think that was. Okay, perfect.
Okay, delegations and presentations, meet the teacher. Have one teacher, I think she's presented a few times. Okay, construction update or building inspection committee report and or. You guys have anything? Is that your side?
The little bit of construction update, we are trying to find some. We're talking about that concrete, expanding the concrete pad behind the shop area to increase workspace. So we're getting some bids for that. We have some grant money for that. We're trying to repair the dust collection system. I don't know where we're at on that.
Fans ordered. Yep, our contractor is in Kentucky or something, so they'll be back soon.
We're working on the shop roof, trying to get that squared away.
What about the kitchen floor?
Kitchen floor, I'm still waiting for a bid back. I'm sure I'm gonna have to get 2 more because it's gonna be a little bit bigger.
Sorry. I was just gonna ask about the shop roof. Is that something that we're having someone else take care of, or are we still trying to handle it in-house?
That's part of the debate about which way we want to go.
Yeah.
I'd kind of like to put it back together
Mhm.
as it was built. But we're looking at options, so next meeting I'll have some more.
Okay.
I think considering this building potentially has the same problem,
Yeah, exactly.
if we were to get a contractor that we're comfortable with, at least we could almost turn them loose.
Right. Okay.
And also talked to a contractor about the sod around this building and that. But again, that's gonna be a pretty big bite. Cautious with that. Because the kitchen floor and some things that jumped up.
Did you have a chance to meet with, the Dragons about
We've been talking back and forth. The fix that was proposed to us was relatively affordable but it's just a surface fix, which the rep thought was fine at this point. It doesn't really address the underlying issue, but I think everybody's a little bit cautious about that, that once you dig into that underlying issue, it's not gonna be anything that anybody wants to fix. Concerned about cost.
And the trees.
I've been kind of holding off until summer to
Okay.
start reaching out to folks. I got the one that you sent me.
I just remember that was a part of the track too, is there were some trees that were hanging over.
Got some oak trees that would
Yeah.
be better off somewhere else.
You update on the lighting part of it?
Yeah, actually. So I tried to make a little kind of one pager. It kind of summarized it. It's an interesting situation. So, you know, the backstory, we started down this road. I started down this road because we had some Senate Bill 1149 funding. There were some incentives, and then third piece was state law that limited our access to fluorescent bulbs. So the status of the buildings right now, the grade school is mostly LED already. There's not a lot that isn't. The high school only has a few LED fixtures. And then the football lights are definitely not LED. So they gave us kind of a three-piece proposal. One of the things I didn't realize at the time was that there are incentives, and those incentives are gonna run out. But a couple of thoughts on incentives when we get to that. The Senate Bill $1149 that would come back to us, so that's money that the state collects from, probably oversimplifying, collects from power companies. It's not a set amount, it's based on rates and charges, all those things. So that you can't say that we're gonna have X number of dollars in that account, it's just a guess or an estimate. We can't access those funds, which would be paid back to us until 2027, because that's when we'll be paid back for the last Senate Bill 1149 project we did, which was, I think, the HVAC units in 2017. That's great school. So, and like I said, gave you the one pager. I tried to break it up based on the 3 different bids. The grade school bid is the smallest because they already have LED fixtures. The high school bid is the highest because it has very little. And then the football stadium. And so one of the things that the bid, we've only received 1 bid. I haven't gone out for 2 more. But I would have to, because they're all over the dollar threshold. And they said this when they came in. They said, well, when we do this, we're going to put all the controls with it. And so it's going to be lights that automatically dim or automatically go off. They're not simple timers, so they'd be relatively complex systems. And he said, I'm going to propose that system because that gets you the biggest incentive. I'm not a lighting guy, so I don't know what the range of options are on that. I do know that having put in security systems and electronic doors and all electronic HVAC units that are networked, every time you go off into that world, it creates a whole nother set of costs. I also, in my foolishness, didn't really think about it, didn't really realize that these can be replaced with LED bulbs. And so we can just take the bulb out, put an LED bulb in. You can also rewire the ballast, essentially bypass the ballast and rework it. Those, all of them have some debate over light quality. But there is an option to not do anything with them. There's also a bill in the Oregon legislature right now that would push back the fluorescent ban until 2030 to 2031. That I heard last week had pretty good traction. But anyway, you just add a whole bunch of into the mix, and then realize that our out-of-pocket costs would be somewhere in the ballpark if you did all 3 projects. Out-of-pocket up front would be about $200,000, which we could probably swing, but it feels like a pretty incentives would come back relatively quickly, although that's not super clear. And then that Senate Bill 1149 money, we wouldn't see the end of that until 2036. There is an estimated cost savings, but it's an estimated cost savings. I don't know how accurate that is, or, or even a can.
What they say is it's got the power bill.
Well, but what if when we have time, why don't we get, an electrician out
The
here?
incentives are gonna run out.
But what if we were to get, an electrician out to price what it would be to remove the ballasts? And then
Convert
just,
them.
well, you just remove them.
Right.
You just take the ballast out and then
Just
you
go
can
around.
put LEDs in. I mean, that's what we did. Because we couldn't swing these numbers. And even if we did this, did they say why the football stadium was so, is it because kids aren't out there all the time? Is that why the saving, or the,
Tim and I talked about that the other day. We only turn on those football lights 10 or 12 times a year,
a year?
and they run for maybe 6 hours at a shot. Those lights have been in for 20, 25 years, and neither of us can remember ever having to change a bulb, which is great because none of us can do that. But you have to call somebody. But it's funny because that's the place that makes me the most nervous, because once you do start to lose those bulbs, like, we don't have the capability of changing them ourselves.
Well, I mean, that will take us 34 and a half years of savings. 34 and a half years. Mainly because we don't use them that often, so there's not a lot of annual savings.
And we are concerned about the track, and then the only way I see to get up there to those things, is gonna drive a big wheel lift on it. So, I think as long as they're functioning.
And they are, as far as I know. I don't know of any that are out, not even one, which is shocking.
When do you think we need to make a decision about this?
I can reach out to the guy that gave me the bid.
I mean, it might be worth just maybe fighting off one. I mean, the high school at this point is probably in the worst shape.
And we do have the option of not doing all three. We don't have to do all three. We can do just.
I'd be real curious to see how much of that expense, like you were just saying, is those controls. So if say the controls are 40,000, but they get us only 10,000 in rebates, why would you make that trade-off necessarily?
I think we can depreciate those over 5 years, can't we?
And those dollars, some over $80 value.
Yeah, cause I don't know how we can use 179 expense, but I think it's 5 years.
So that, I think that's that line, that
It wouldn't be a
SB,
savings at all.
SB 149, I mean, that's how long we'll be paying, right? Till 36. Interesting.
Oh, those other schools, the grade school was 6.5 years and the high school is 5.5 years. If their estimated annual savings is close to accurate.
Something we're learning at the grade school is, say, the hallway, right, that's on all the time, they've already timed out. They're dying, the LEDs are. And when, we thought it was shocking until you actually look at the running hours and do the math, and you're like, will they run their life?
Right.
So, we have that everywhere in the next.
Control systems, we get longer life out of our LEDs theoretically.
So what will be the next course then here? You've got to get bids before we,
I can reach out to the bid that I have and maybe gather some more data. He offered to come present, but I didn't know what we wanted to do. So I could ask him about that too, if you want to hear from him.
We just want to hear a number of somebody to come and give us a bid to just take out the ballast or leave these lights.
I don't, the incentive disappears.
there will be no
Gotcha.
incentive.
Right. That would be much cheaper. And it's, the other piece is, I think, at the high school anyway, it'd be new lights. Like, it wouldn't be the same. If I could a similar fixture.
So maybe reach out to the same person and get like the not fancy option. And then if you think we've gotta get two other bids, right, because of the dollar amount. What's that? Well, the incentive money's gonna be gone, so the longer you wait, the less chance you have of.
Yeah, so the incentives add up to 123,000 that wouldn't be.
You want to take advantage of
I'm saying that, no.
Well, and really, we've gotta pick and choose. The high school is definitely the most important part. I mean, even if we're talking incentive money, that's by far the biggest chunk.
My concern with the football field is what it's gonna cost. Once you start losing bulbs, fixtures, come out every time and replace those.
Are those the sodium bulbs? Is that
Yeah.
what
They're not cheap either.
No.
And they're getting rarer and rarer to get too. We gotta start updating stuff, maybe we should. If we have the financial where to do it, and we're gonna get paid back, the incentives eventually, and the savings. To me, it sounds like a good idea.
The enrollment and attendance.
Increase.
Kind of holding steady, but, yeah. 20 down from last year. Since we were talking about attendance stuff in the, our discipline, discussion earlier, I think I'm just gonna reach out to principals. How's the attendance been? You wanna start, Kim?
Attendance is really tricky. It's just like a variety of different reasons students are gone. Stuff happening outside of life. Some of our kids get themselves to school, so parties are a thing. It's tough to know how to support those families when they're absent. So we reached out today to a kiddo who's been gone for a chunk of time, and I don't know if it came up, but truancy doesn't have the same teeth that it did. Not that that's always the best approach. I think there's many ways you can approach it, but it's a really challenging one to deal with, for sure. It's definitely not where I would want it to be, but finding a solution to that is feels really case by case in our building. And sickness, I mean, like, we had some wild amounts of kids gone in December, I think it was. It just kind of ripped through the building, and then it gets better, and then there's trips and stuff, which is really worthy for some families, and I get that, I respect that. I think the thing that, and our building leans a lot on our family support liaison to connect with families who are dealing with like chronic tardiness or just getting to school, and then engagement plays right into it. So I think it's a challenge across the board everywhere. So it's, like we say a lot, it's not just us thing, but
Pretty strong problem. Well, similar.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's layered, it's not good. It just either, it's a control difference that I think a lot of stuff we don't associate with very well.
We discussed that quite a bit in depth earlier. Just it's something we're not accustomed to. It wasn't that way when we were in school. So, did you guys see any uptick at all with free breakfast?
not measurably. I don't
Yeah.
think.
I guess I already stole some of your thunder on that stuff. Administrative update, Kim.
The fourth quarter somehow already, they're kind of trying to go through and think about what's happened since the last meeting. So before spring break, we did the talent show, which had a really good turnout. The leadership fundraiser, Lori Bechtold comes back and partners with Rosie Furman to pull that off, and the whole, tryout, which is really just, can you hang in there for a practice? They just have that really dialed in, and so it's, sweet to see kids who are brave enough to get on that stage actually do it. And there was a really good community turnout for that night. We had conferences last week that were really well attended. Many of our teachers had all their families attend, or just one or two who couldn't make it, which was nice. Michelle Halstead, did the book fair at the same time, which is kind of a neat goal when parents are already there to have the book fair going on. We, this Wednesday, have kindergarten roundup, so, try to catch all of our kindergartners. We've been trying to put that out to local preschools and posting it where we can, and, so that'll be 5:30 to 7. Miss Hayes will give a presentation, Miss Reed and I will be there, and kids and families come, and it was, last year it was a pretty good representation of who showed up to kindergarten. It's always kind of a wild card, but, we're gonna also bring back, we did it in years past, kindergartner for a day. So at Roundup, we'll invite, students to come back in mid-May for like an hour where kids will get to be in class doing like a buddy activity with students, and then parents, will go to the library and get like a readiness literacy talk. So trying to figure out ways we can have a few touch points for those kinder families to get connected, with the school and with each other before students start in the fall. Next week is, I'm like a week off. I can't believe next week is like the 20th. We're there already. Sixth grade goes to forest camp. Most of our sixth graders are going, which is great. Those that stay back will have kind of a, different schedule, to be in the mix too. So kids that opt not to go can still have regular stuff going on. The high school, we're gonna use, hands-on learning day again, so get into the details of that, but our 7th and 8th graders will come over here that Friday to, check out high school. Lots of field trips are landing on the calendar for May. We've got people going to the aquarium, someone's going to Defy, Corvallis Knights games, all that stuff's kind of starting to, surface. We have state testing starts the last week of this month, and it's all scheduled out, so quite a few of our students get tested at the grade school. 3rd through 8th grade all test in math and language arts, and then our 5th grade graders do science testing also. Michelle in the library helps coordinate that. Teachers are present when they're testing also. And then last week of this month too, Junction City School of Dance is coming to do a performance assembly for us, which will be nice. We have a pretty decent, chunk of dancers, and so they scheduled it so a lot of our own students will get to perform in the dance, which will be really nice. So, more so for
Hey, Bo.
Oh, yeah, to piggyback off the hands-on learning day, I think this is year 3, if I'm not mistaken.
Sure.
We've kind of refined it a little bit, but essentially we send them an interest inventory survey. They just mark what they're interested in the categories, not necessarily what they, we don't tell them what we're doing, and then teachers kind of either co-teach or have an activity for them, and then we kind of give them a little mini session. So they come in for a little bit, then they go to lunch, and then during lunch, we usually take some juniors or seniors and kind of have like a panel discussion where these 3 or 4 seniors that maybe had a little bit different paths through high school, straight A student, but maybe kind of the, 2.0 student too, but then ended up kind of changing how they looked at education and just kind of what they got involved with. So it's been a good event, and I think well liked over the years. So I just wrapped up the senior projects last week. The vast majority of seniors, I think, are taking a big sigh of relief. I think local scholarships are due next week, and then it's just kind of wrapping things up and making sure they're ready to move on to bigger and better things. See what else. National Honor Society induction ceremony is coming up I don't know if it's at the end of this month or the beginning of next month. Ms. Fuller's kind of trying to lock that in, but you're more than welcome to attend. It's a smaller group this year. I think we're only 2 or 3. Last couple of years have been a little bit bigger, but I'd say about 5 to 6 is usually the standard. But yeah, you know, we've done different things, but usually it's dessert, a little bit of ceremony and, you know, coffee and a little bit of social time, but try to keep it minimal for families to, you know, have just another thing to pick up their time. Let's see, working on some CTE bids and spending some high school success money, you know, trying to thoughtfully go through that. Just now put the 3 bids for the shop concrete, and I guess facility upgrades that we're trying to look through, and then just trying to pick the brains of teachers, what they might be interested in, looking into team organ build, which is the you partner with some industry people and they bring you supplies, or we'll purchase them and then build homeless shelters, sheds, different, you know, just real applicable construction type things, and then try to see how we can match them up with other bits and pieces. So yeah, home flag football on Thursday. So if you it'll be our second home game, but also last for the season. So if your student starts at our girls will play at 7:15-ish. I think the first game's at 6, but it'll be a little bit later, and we'll use those football lights a little more time. So yeah, that's about it.
Excellent, thank you, Bill. Bill, anything you want to add? Good. Old business reminder, March 15th, April 15th, filing window for annual verified statement of economic interest. Everyone's done that fun, try and work through that. Did you?
It will be done
Better make sure, because it was a whole process.
I remember last year, it wasn't that bad.
What you do the second?
Yeah, second time.
I couldn't get it in.
Okay,
I
well.
saved mine on my phone. I just went click it was awesome.
Yeah.
Or so everyone else can get in and file bad things online.
I'm gonna do that next week.
New business, approval of teacher and guidance counselor week, May 4th through the 10th.
I will motion to approve the teacher and guidance counselor week.
Second.
Those in favor?
Okay.
Wonderful. I would like to add something, and I apologize, I didn't do it earlier, to new business. I was scheming on a way maybe we could connect with the students as a board. And, unfortunately, the grade school, or maybe fortunately, has about 1 million students of the month, I learned from my research. There isn't just one, there's one per class, kind of, it sounds like.
Yeah, 1, 2.
Yep. What I would like to propose is probably just a high school student that we sponsor either Benny's Pizza or dessert or something as a board. We ask them to come here to the meeting and get their certificate, but just something kind of fun to connect. Or we could do something else, but I just wanted to start that dialogue. I was hoping we could do one per building, but it doesn't sound like it would work very well with 20 students or so down there. I know I couldn't do
Sounds
it.
great. Or we can start here and just see
Mhm.
what the reception is, and then try to figure out a way to come up with something for the grade school.
Mhm. Definitely.
I like both the ideas. I think the reason I was thinking the pizza thing is because then like the whole family can celebrate the kid's accomplishment, you know, together. But I think it deserves it too.
Sounds good.
Do you think we could get them here though? Like, do you think they'd come to a board meeting and accept that?
I think student of the month
Yeah.
probably would.
Perfect. That's the one I was thinking, kind of broader, since we only meet once a month. And
Yeah.
sounds good. Well, maybe I'll dig on that some more and see how it would be structured or something. I think the community would partner with us too.
You want me to call Trina?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
I'll call her and see if maybe she'll split or something with us, like, if I don't get one.
Okay. Okay. No public comment forums, right, Christine?
No.
I guess with that, we adjourn. 6:35.
Mouse Tax Day, friendly reminder.
I have something for you guys to sign.
Yeah.
No, that just means that I start on extensions.
Oh, yeah.